Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. Let me turn it over to Madhavi to do introductions of today's guest speaker.
All right, thank you. So, this is our second session of our Spring AI Forum. You may be familiar with John Parrott because he did visit with us about a year ago on the Copilot side. So, we thought, all right, let's get him back to talk about the agentic AI because that everybody seems to be talking about agentic AI. So, we thought it would be good for us to go ahead and kind of introduce the topic as well as see what is being done right now. So, John, take it away.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back again. And today's real topic is going to be about agents. This next stage in evolution that comes when you start getting into the AI realm, especially with Copilot. So that's going to be our main focus of today. Go ahead and share my screen here real fast so we can get started into the PowerPoint. Now, today's PowerPoint will come along with some ability to always ask questions. So if you ever have a question that you want to field, feel free to just interrupt me. I used to teach high school English, so I'm used to it. But you can also just click that raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And when I have a break in my thought, I will definitely call upon you. Another element that I'd like to say is that everything that I'm going to be showing you today should be available. There are always parameters or some special buttons and whistles that have been pushed behind the scenes that everything that I might be showing today might not be in your view right now. So we're going to be talking very broadly, and if we need to get more specific down the road, I'll be happy to. So let me go ahead and I'm receiving a call just real fast. I apologize. It is my boss. Let me just take this 1 second and I'll make sure everything is all right and I'll be right back. Oop. Sorry, I'm trying to turn off my screen. There we go.
So, while he's taking the call, let me post our schedule for the rest of the semester. I'm also in the process of trying to find the speakers for the next 2 semesters, so fall and spring. If you have any ideas, if you want to be part of the conversations, please let us know so we can schedule you as well.
My apologies. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it today. So the first question that always comes up is, what is an agent? Oh, my PowerPoint is being a little weird. What is an agent? How is this going to be different than anything else that we've addressed? Now, I can give you a very complicated answer and about how really Copilot agents are like these specialized team members and how they're going to be able to do more than you ever could. But really, the analogy that I love to use is that if co-pilots are like your intern, they're overeager to help you, they have access to your information, but they're not going to understand the nuance of your job and how you work. Agents are a lot more like paid interns, or maybe even contractors at some point, because we can really give them specialized, individualized work that we need done and allow that work to be done repetitively with that concept in mind. So the real deviation comes from, first of all, where Copilot agents pull their information from. Now, with standard Copilot or other agentic sources, it's going to definitely be pulling around from all the different elements that you feed into it. And with Copilot, it feeds in from all of your SharePoint files, all your Teams conversations, your internet, your Teams posts, your emails. But within Copilot agents, we can actually start to specify where these data sources are coming from and how this information can be pulled. So we have some SharePoint specific files that we can pull in. We can just say, hey, agent, don't look at anything else on the SharePoint. Just look at this data. And also just look at these amount of Teams posts. And at the same time, still access the web. We can really make it a bespoke knowledge experience for our agents, which means that it's not going to pull ancillary information that might not be related to what you're trying to search for. At the same time, the data sources that we can pull from are very different as well. Now, In the standard set of Copilot agents, you're going to have all of the same knowledge bases that you're used to, such as websites, SharePoint files, Teams, all the things I was speaking about. But as we get deeper into the agent profile, you'll be able to pull in things like Azure or Dataverse or other areas that you might be able to pull data from, including other third-party systems as well. So this really allows Copilot to be able to access all of these different bits of information, even beyond the scope of Microsoft. However, probably the largest superpower that this Copilot has, that most agents, I mean, most Copilot experiences won't give you, is the fact that it can actually perform tasks for you. Some of you may be familiar with a Microsoft program called Power Automate, which basically is a workflow system that allows for different places within the Microsoft environment to interact with one another. Meaning that, oh, as soon as an email comes in from this one person, it sends me a Teams message. Or whenever somebody adds a file into a SharePoint folder, it automatically make a copy somewhere else. We can automate this with Power Automate, but now with the power of AI, we can have AI help dictate how to handle certain situations and multiple different variations of those situations. And that's some of the power that we're going to be getting into with these sessions. Now, I'm going to first of all describe to you the 4 different kind of agents that are out there. And really, it's 3 with a small subset. And that one subset is a SharePoint agent. Now, these should come standard with your SharePoints that you already have developed. And within this SharePoint agent automatically comes in as a curator or librarian for your agent. Not only is it going to be able to help you find files quicker and easier than your search bar by looking for not only titles but relevant information, it's also going to be able to collate questions that you might have about files that are saved within the SharePoint. Not only do these come standard, but we'll also be able to customize them as well, which I'll show during our demonstration portion. Next up is what the subset of SharePoint agents are is actually a retrieval agent. These agents are designed to scour your different systems and find information to bring back to you. And you again dictate where these information sources are going to live. So a retrieval agent can do a lot as far as pulling that information and collating it into your needs. In one of the demonstrations today, I'll even show you that you can upload notes and use a retrieval agent to spit out a different version of those notes following a specific template, meaning all of your records will always be kept in good, clean order. However, these 2 agents, the SharePoint agent and retrieval agent, while customizable, are really built for more of the average everyday user. And there's going to be assistance that's going to be offered in creating them to make sure that anybody can really use these powers. However, when we get into our deeper, more advanced abilities with agents, that's where we're going to have to go into a different source of information. So for the agents I've already shown you, we would use something called Copilot Studio Lite, a user-based, holding hand-friendly way to build these agents. But the more complicated ones that use those Power Automate tools I was speaking before, we'll be using a program called Copilot Studio, a separate web page that I'll be illustrating a little bit about, but really kind of showing you more of the deeper dive into how you can program your agents into your life. Now, I will say this is more of a developer mindset, maybe more of a power user mindset to really get in here. But once you start learning Microsoft Studio Lite or Copilot Studio Lite, the transference over to Copilot Studio is going to be pretty clean and easy. As far as these superpowers, though, are concerned, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the 2 types of agents that come from that Copilot Studio area. The first is a task agent, and that's the one I'm really highlighting on, where it's able to perform tasks for you based on conversation and interactions that you have with it. But sometimes we want to use the power of AI without actually having to interact with it. We want to be able to trust it to automatically do work for us. And in that regard, we have autonomous agents. These autonomous agents are going to be working behind the scenes, and other than you going in and just making sure they're maintained, should be doing all the work without you ever having to interact with it. Now, again, I am going to be showing you a demo of all of these types of agents, but before I go down that road, is there any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms I could be answering? All right, let's dig in.
Hey, John, quick question. Sorry
Yeah.
to slow you down.
Go ahead.
Earlier, you said these agents just work within SharePoint structures. A lot of our data is stored elsewhere. Do these agents have ready access to things like OneDrive and other places where we store info?
Absolutely. So SharePoint was just an example that I was using, but there is going to be multiple different places we can pull information from. However, our first agent that I'm going to be showing you today is going to be exclusive to SharePoint. And I'll be giving you some demonstration on how that works. But the other agents, we will have a little bit more flexibility in what we can connect to. All right, so let's go ahead and start with our SharePoint agents. When activated, should appear in our top right-hand corner area. If you've ever been playing around a lot with SharePoint, you've probably clicked on this gear icon to get to site permission or site contents. This button falls in that same line. And when I click on it, it's going to bring out this right-hand rail. Those of you that have had experiences with Copilot so far probably know that whenever you see something on the right-hand rail with Copilot, it automatically means it's becoming an expert on whatever is to the left of it. In this case, it's our SharePoint. So I can come into this SharePoint and I can ask simple questions like, what are the latest modified files? And I don't have to necessarily pre-describe that, oh, from this SharePoint or anything like that, because we're already within the SharePoint and this agent is an expert in this particular SharePoint. So it's going to be able to scan that system and find those answers for me. Now, you'll see that this does something that your regular search bar doesn't really do, and that is check for modified by dates. Usually with the search that we see at the top, we're looking for keywords, we're looking for titles of our projects, or maybe some content that is there. But with the Copilot addition into our SharePoint, now we can look for the more metadata and the information that is a little bit maybe lost in the cracks at times. At the same time, I can answer large-scale questions just automatically based on the data that's being sourced. So I can say something like, what are the best use cases for Copilot agents? And it's going to be able to scour my whole entire SharePoint entry to find that answer for me. Now, I know that many of you are probably seeing that this could be valuable, but you wish that you could tweak it, that you could really make it your own, or maybe have a specific agent that pulls information back for you in a specific way. And the good news is we can absolutely set that up. If we come up to the title of where this agent is, this SharePoint agent set as our default, I can click this drop-down arrow and you're going to see that there's a few agents that have also been created. I have this press release agent and this use case per persona agent. And you'll see that these are approved for this site. However, you'll also notice that there is a recent section where my Copilot agent's material agent is, Copilot agent 2, Copilot agent Cocoon, Copilot Cocoon agent, so on and so forth. All of these agents are a little bit different than the ones approved by your site. And that's because agents are actually not that different than documents that you're housing on your SharePoint as far as permissions are concerned. So anytime that you build an agent, it will automatically become available for editors and owners of your SharePoint. But if you want to build a SharePoint that even visitors can use, you can choose to enhance its permissions and it will appear in this approved for site. You can even have certain agents that are locked down to only specific individuals. So you're not creating a huge amount of clutter in the amount of agents that a SharePoint might need. You'll also notice that in the background, it was able to find all my questions that I had about great use cases for Copilot agents and was able to deliver all of that information just on documentation from the SharePoint. But how do I create these SharePoints? How can I make them customized for me if I don't want to use just the standard one that comes with the system? Well, in that case, we can click on this Create an Agent button. And this is where we're going to be taken to a version of Copilot Studio Lite, that user-friendly version of Copilot I was speaking to before. So first thing that I can do is change the name of this. So I'm going to go ahead and Copilot Cocoon, and I'll say demo is now the name. What you'll notice is that, oh, it can't start or end with white space. There we go. What you'll notice is as I make changes to this left-hand side, it actually makes a change to this agent preview section. And as you can see, I can actually ask the similar questions that I did before to this agent in real time. So as I'm changing this agent, I can be testing the results that it's coming back to me with. So I can say, what is one use case for Copilot? And you'll see that it's running and I can actually be testing my system as I go. Coming back over to our options, however, we have the ability to change an icon. So if you want to have something to represent your agent specifically, you can have that. And you can also include your purpose. Now, you've probably run into places within Microsoft before where you're supposed to put in a description or you're supposed to put in some metadata information, and you might skip that usually because it's really for reference purposes, and oftentimes we don't really do a good job of keeping track of that data. And that's not just you, that's worldwide. However, when it comes to agents, areas like this are vitally important because the agent is actually going to read who it is from this purpose list. So if I put in here, hey, you are a librarian for the SharePoint, always provide all of these elements of documentation whenever I ask for a question, it's going to have this within. If I put that in the purpose, the agent's going to read that and behave in kind. We're going to get a little bit more into agents and more importantly instructions as we get deeper into these agents, but just know that this purpose is important. Now, you'll see that I was able to bring back this answer for me, which is really nice. I appreciate that. But you know what? I want to have some specific sources. I want to have this Copilot only look at specific files whenever it answers questions. Again, I don't want to muddy the waters with too much data. So I can come up to this Sources tab, and what we'll see is that right now, this agent is pulling from my Copilot Cocoon, the name of the SharePoint. So anything connected to it is related here. However, I can click on these three dots and say, you know what? I only want to add specific content from this site. And in this case, whenever it loads, I'm going to choose just this art folder. This is the documents folder that's located within my SharePoint. And I'm saying, hey, whenever you look for information, only look at this art folder. And now if I ask the exact same question I did before to my little preview agent to my right-hand side, it's going to come back saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you because I've limited the amount of information it has, and none of the information in this folder is related to Copilot. As you can see, it's working in real time, allowing you to test this agent capability. However, let's say that I want to add different pieces of information to this documentation. Maybe we all know that sprawl happens. Maybe what I'm looking for is located in 2 or 3 different SharePoints. If that's the case, I can go ahead and click here and actually search for different SharePoints that I have access to. And I can say, oh, I want to include this SharePoint, adding the entire site, or I can go ahead and get granular again, choosing only specific folders from other SharePoints. So now this agent has become flexible because where it might live only on this site, it has access to other pieces of information. In fact, you can even bring in files from your OneDrive if you want to in order to further enhance its capabilities. So this is really allowing you to change the way that your Copilot agent is going to think and what it knows. But what we also want to cover is how we want it to behave. What type of answers we want back? What type of situations do we want it to follow step-by-step instructions? And for that, we're going to come under the Behavior tab. Now, under Behavior, you're going to see that I can change this welcoming message, which is really important as you want to teach people how to use this particular agent and what its purpose is. And starter prompts are another way of doing that. That also includes a ways for people to know what they can automatically start prompting right out the bat. But probably the most important element of any agent is going to be the instructions. This is where you are writing in how you want your agent to behave. In many cases, I call this prompt 0. When you've been working with Copilot in the past, you may have had to give it parameters each time that you're going to be asking for something that may have gotten repetitive. We can actually include that inside of our instructions now in order to get certain behaviors. So it can be very simple. You can say, when you give me results, please order them by different file type, including Word first. So I can go ahead and give it specific instructions on how to behave and how to roll those answers back to me. Now, just because of the sensitive nature of everything, I'm not going to necessarily go with this agent to show these instructions. I have some much better agents that have some much more detailed instructions I want to show you down the road. But this is just the main overview of a SharePoint agent and a great place to start. Is there any questions about SharePoint agents? All right, let's move on. Next up is retrieval agents. And again, this is more of those user-friendly agents I was talking about. So I have a demo of a retrieval agent right here. It is built specifically to look inside my OneDrive. It's meant to be something that is just basically my personal assistant. So I can come in here and say, what files do I have about Copilot? And it's going to be able to act as my personal assistant, my custodian in finding that information and delivering it to me in a way that makes the most sense to me. So we'll wait for an answer in just a few seconds. But again, I was really giving clarity to it on what areas I wanted to search, only my OneDrive, and how it needs to bring things back. Now, as you can see, it's already pulling in some of my custom instructions that I've given. This Copilot is acting a lot different than anybody else's. If you'll read the first line with me, I slid the stack of papers across my desk, the rain tapping out a rhythm that binds behind me. You asked for files. You asked for files on Copilot doll, and I dug through your digitally filing cabinet like a gumshoe on a midnight sidewalk. Why is my Copilot behaving this way? Well, in my instructions, I told the Copilot to have the personality of a secretary to a detective in a film noir. So that way it adds a little bit of personality and makes this interaction feel a little bit more alive. This is one element that I feel like many other people that are trying to put the world of Copilot on display fail to recognize, and that is Copilot can help you immensely with your work, but that doesn't mean that it can't be a little bit fun as well. You can make it enjoyable and thereby making you want to increase your use of it because it's an experience that works best for you. Now, this is a very random side case. This is just for my personal humor, but there's other instructions that you can write into your agent that help as well. So in this case, I did exactly what I told my SharePoint agent to do. I said, hey, split these files up by the different file types. So here's my PowerPoints, here's my docx files from Word, ASPX pages, so SharePoint files, PDFs, so on and so forth. And what you'll also notice is that there's a relevancy meter. That's something that I ask Copilot to include as well. Whenever I ask a question, show me how relevant this document is to the question that I was asking, and brought that information in for me as well. Also, the way that my brain works, tables always work better than large-scale paragraphs. So I explained to this agent in my instructions, hey, build everything into a table, if you would, and be able to illustrate that information for me. Now, how does this agent look under the hood? Well, I'll go ahead and go to my retrieval agent, click on the edit button, and when it's good and ready, there we go. It's showing you how my agent is behaving. And you'll see that this actually is pretty sparse. I haven't spent a lot of time developing this agent. I called it retrieval agent. It acts as a personal assistant monitoring my documents. Talk to me like a film noir secretary for a private investigator. Consider all my projects I'm working on cases. When scanning for information, show me the results back separated by file type and include a rating of how relevant this document is to my search. I've included just I put my SharePoint files, excuse me, I misspoke, not my OneDrive files, but that is an option. And if I click on here, you're going to see that I can pull in individual files that I've recently worked with, or pull in my teams, pull in my emails. I can do all of that information as I need. Also, under capabilities, I can set up to where it can create charts and graphs and codes for me, which I'll show in my next demonstration. But some of those same features I was seeing before, like suggested prompts, are available as well. Another great retrieval agent example I like to use is my client note formatter. So in this regard, I went ahead and had the agent basically provide notes and transcripts. So I would feed it specific transcripts or notes that I had taken during a meeting, and I wanted them transformed into a specific way. And so I went ahead and loaded up a document that was a template for Copilot to use and said, you know what, go ahead and create documents whenever I ask. So now whenever I actually use this agent, which I'll come back to here, I can say, use this the saved prompt. I'll say, you know what, from this meeting, go ahead and give me some notes from it. And it's going to be able to read that meeting, pull the transcript information, and create a document with the notes from that meeting included, allowing me to always have my notes in a particular way so I don't have to worry about variation across the board. As you can see, it's automatically created that document for me to download. So, how do we build these agents for ourselves? Again, we head down to a button that says New Agent. And from here, we have some of the same similar functions that we saw before under the configure menu. We'll have name, description, which is basically a purpose, write out our instructions, include our knowledge base, but let's face it, when you're first starting, this can feel a little overwhelming. You don't really know if you're doing it right or not. And Microsoft wants to make this as easy as possible for you. So they've actually given you this description menu. Under this description, you are going to work with a Copilot agent that's going to help you build a Copilot agent. So I can say here something along the lines of, help me build an agent that translates what Shakespeare says and helps me write like him. And now what the Copilot is going to do is read through my initial prompt, start filling in information about this agent into that configure tab I was just sharing with you, and then start asking me follow-up questions of what do I want this agent to be capable of? What files do I want this agent to be able to reference? And so as you can see, it's starting to add that information in, and that test preview agent on my right-hand side is being filled in the same time. In fact, if I go back over to this configure tab that was blank just a few seconds ago, you're going to see that the agent has already started filling in the name, the description, created some instructions for this agent to follow for me, and is really showing me and guiding me through the process of creating this agent and how I might need it. And as I continue asking questions with this agent, it will include the documentation that I recommend. It will turn on the capabilities that I need, which means it's really going through that hand-holding procedure. All right, so that's kind of just an overview of retrieval agents, our last of our user-friendly agents. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between the agents you create in Microsoft 365 Copilot and the agents you create in the Copilot Studio?
Great question. So these agents, so this screen that we're kind of seeing right here is what I called Copilot Studio Lite. So this is the lighter version of what Copilot is capable of. It's going to give you access to the documents and also being able to generate certain things. And honestly, more and more features have been rolling out for this than most. The only real difference is that with a full Copilot Studio agent, they're going to be able to tap into your Power Automate system. And I actually have a great example to show of that right now, if you'll stick with me. So in this case, I'm now going to change over to a task agent, one that is actually built to do work for me. But it remains in that same place as all of my other agents. It's not just a separate area. For a particular user, they're not going to see a difference. So I'm going to come into this task agent, and I've built this task agent specifically to help with Microsoft issues. I built this as kind of a precursor to somebody using something like ServiceNow to put in tickets for their IT issues. So I'm going to come in here and say, I'm having an issue with Teams. It seems to have people calling me when they are not. And I'm just going to put that into the chat. Now, normally, Copilot is going to try and do its best to help me fix my problem, but I've specifically designed this agent not to fix problems, but to catalog them. And because I used to work in IT and I know how bad tickets can be, I wanted this agent not to just take the blank word of the first prompt that was given. I wanted it to ask follow-up questions. I wanted it to develop out what the problem really was. And you'll see here that it's gone ahead and now asked me a few questions. To log this issue accurately, could you please provide some more information? Are you receiving notification or pop-ups for calls that do not actually occur? Yes. Does this happen with specific contacts or randomly? Randomly. Have you noticed this issue occurs with a particular device? My computer. So I could answer all of these questions, but I'm just giving it just the barest minimum in interest of time today. So I went ahead and I entered that into my agent. The agent is now completing tasks in the background that I never see as the user. So you can see the issue has been logged. Well, what does that mean? If I come to this SharePoint list, you're going to see that I already have a catalog of all of these different issues that have been going on with my Microsoft products. I know it doesn't look good, but I've been giving this demonstration a lot. And you'll see that it's automatically added all that conversation from my Copilot agent directly into my list. It proceeded to do that on its own. It chose the issue title. It then took a full description of what the issue is, including not only my initial response to get it started, but also how I responded to its questions, automatically assigned it to an application, gave it a priority level of normal, and just to make sure I'm not a liar, you see, this was just created a few seconds ago. So as I was conversing with the agent. And with that in mind, what you can see is that now all of this information is being cataloged from an agent and nobody had to necessarily interact with it, but it was still gathering information. But it doesn't stop there, because if a ticket has come in, we've got to notify somebody. So I went ahead and had this agent send me an email about this issue as well. So this is a little confusing because I'm the user and I'm the person receiving the email. But as you can see, it went ahead and created an email for me saying a Teams issue has been logged for review. Here's the user's name. Here's the description. Here's some solutions to get started. So this is actually taking all of that core functionality and building it into the different ways that it can interact with our Microsoft environment. I am seeing that there are a few questions in the chat. I was not seeing those before, so let me try and jump to those a little quickly. Number one, oftentimes it can really be difficult to search for files within Microsoft Teams. Would a Copilot agent be help with this? If so, how would that be set up? Great question. So yes, it can do a much better search for Teams. Remember that whenever we search using our standard search parameters, we all have the same mentality of boiling it down to just simple keywords and then having to search and do all the filtering ourselves. Copilot can look for context whenever it looks for information and documentation. So whether you build one of the user-friendly agents or you went ahead and you're building one of these more sophisticated agents because you want more functionality included, Copilot can do a much better job of doing that search for you. It looks like Sammy answered that as well. Richard asked the question, is there a charge based on user messages to and from the agent once we deploy it in any form of Copilot agents you have described? Richard, excellent question. The answer is sometimes. And I'm going to have a slide at the very end of my presentation that's going to helpfully demystify how those charges would really come into play. But don't worry, there's some good news as well as some practical news that will come with that slide. All right, are there any specific questions about the agent that I just used before I get under the hood and show you how I created it?
Hey, John, quick question.
Yes.
So one of the things that we struggle with is the legal contracts that comes through, right? So where I'm going with this is, in my head, I'm thinking if we had a template of what the contract needs to look like, what key areas it needs to address that supports UND, is it possible for us to create an agent where here's our template, here's the contract that is coming through, upload it, and tell me where are the things that we should be concerned about?
100%. You can build an agent that can review that information. You could build an agent that will actually intake just scattered information about a project and put it in that format that you have of that template. I will tell you, I'm working with one company right now that is doing all of their HR compliancy through an agent. They are feeding anything that they're going to be doing to an agent. It checks for that HR, makes sure there's no HIPAA violations or anything of the sort, and it pulls back any sort of alarming or worrying areas. There was a little bit of fine tuning we had to do to make sure it was correctly bespoke to them, but sure enough, it is functioning very well today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, then let's crack under the hood of what this looks like. So I know many of you probably are power users, and that's one of the reasons why you're here. Some of you might feel like you're more just users, but still, this is great information to understand what it's capable of so that you know how to dream appropriately. So first thing you're going to see is some very similar areas of what we saw with the Copilot Studio Lite. We have name, we have description or purpose, But one of the main changes we can have is we can actually select the model of ChatGPT that is being used for our service. So if there's ever some sort of issue, or if you know something is working in the past version that might not be working in the newest version yet, you can roll back, or you can get ahead of the curve and actually get into some of the previews of what is to come with your agents. Another nice addition is your analytics. Basically, how this agent is performing with the different users that it has. You'll be able to see if people are getting their answers utilized. You'll be able to see what tasks that the Copilot is actually accomplishing and what tools it's using to accomplish them. And if you can create a culture where people do push the thumbs up and thumbs down button in Copilot, you can actually also see a satisfaction survey as well, which really allows you to be able to adjust the agent, not just to what you dream up, but to what actual people are interacting with. Yes, Andrew.
Sorry, accidental raise of the hand.
No worries. Happens to the best of us. All right. Then we get into my instructions. And as you can see, I'm not building some very super secret elaborate code here. I'm talking to this agent kind of like it's a person. And I said, you're responsible for creating SharePoint list items based on tech issues, not solving the problem. I had to do that quite often because Copilot wants to help you so bad, I had to find specific ways to tell it, no, you don't have to solve this problem, you just need to catalog it. When a user submits an issue, you will follow the following steps in order. Step 1, gather 5 relevant follow-up questions to the initial issue that the user asked. Number 2, ask the user response to your follow-up questions. Number 3, with both of that information, fill out the SharePoint list item. And step 4, go ahead and send an email with all of that information. And at the very least, step 5, after the email has been sent, let the person know that they'll be in contact by an IT person very soon. So I don't have to know any sort of special language to get in here. I can literally just speak to this agent like it's a person and get those results. Next up is knowledge. So I don't have any knowledge for this particular agent. I didn't need it. But if I again click on that add knowledge segment, you're going to see that we're still have our OneDrive and SharePoint files. We can access SharePoint here as well. But we can access Azure, Salesforce, Dynamics, public websites that are available. In fact, if you have the ability to pay for premium connectors, you might even find ways to connect to other data information sources. So Andrew, as you were speaking before, OneDrive's completely on the table, but other file storage areas might be there as well, depending on what you use. So that's just an available option to think of. However, normally whenever you're looking at a premium connector, that comes at a premium price. So fair warning. Also, you have the ability to turn off or on web search. So if you don't want an agent to get any information from the web, if you only wanted to look at the data that you're feeding it, you can turn that off. But the most important element of a Copilot Studio agent is the tools. So within these tools, what we are doing is basically enabling the Copilot to do specific functions. So the first thing that I ever did whenever I was testing an agent was add this send an email tool. Now, for those of you familiar with Power Automate, that's going to look very familiar. That is an action that you can have done within Power Automate. And normally whenever you include it, there's a lot of configuration you have to do. You have to set who is the to line, who is the from line, what do you want the body to look like? It's not just a simple step. So when I first added this and it didn't ask me any clarifying questions, no configuration menu, I was a little surprised. So I did what any good IT person did. I try and break it. And I said, send me an email to telling me to take a vacation. And I did this primarily because I wanted to see what the error message was, like what it was going to pop back to me and why it wasn't able to accomplish this. And the crazy part was it was able to do it. It was able to send me that email. Now, it seems like it's having a little issue right now. Of course, when I'm trying to act all cool, let me try that one more time. Send me an email telling me to take it. There we go. And you can see that it went automatically and did that. It found my email because it's connected to our Microsoft environment. So it knew who I was because I was logged in and found my email connected to that account, completely wrote a body in proper HTML formatting, and sent me an email telling me to take a vacation. And I was floored because it was making all of the intuitive leaps. It filled in the body. It made those determinations on who to send it to. It was able to make those jumps. However, for some people, that might be a little bit disarming because you're like, ooh, you're giving a lot of leeway to Copilot to do something. Well, good news, you can actually build more specific rules for Copilot to follow, such as this particular Copilot flow. In this flow, I said, hey, we are going to be creating a SharePoint list item. But instead of just giving my agent carte blanche to make all the changes, I said, I want you to be very specific. So I had to tell it what inputs to look for. What are the questions you need to ask the user or make sure you have information for before you can fill in? So as you can see here, I have issue, full description, application, status, check-in date, priority level. These are all the same inputs of the columns to my SharePoint list. So in utilizing this, I am saying, hey, dynamically fill in this information with AI. Now, if I wanted to, I could create a custom value, something that's going to be rubber stamped and always used the same way time and time again. But I can choose to trust AI to gather this information and collect it. And not only that, but I can also customize how it reads out this information as well. So if I click on customize, you'll see it says, oh, that has changed. That shouldn't be there. Did this one change as well? Oh, here's a good example. For my full description, write a full description of the issue, trying to encapsulate all the information the user is given. So whenever it was creating this full description area, it knew, oh, I wanted to look at the person who designed me wants information to be given in this particular way. And so that feeds that very well. Richard, I see that you have your hand raised.
If I'm jumping ahead, just tell me I am. But what would you do in a situation where you've told it to dynamically fill in with AI and you hate its response? How do you constrain, how do you teach it to do a better job with identifying what the issue is or identifying the full problem? Is that a separate process under rules, or does that happen here?
So there's a few ways that you can really approach the thought. But my first one that I would definitely go towards is remember that Copilot is acting as somebody that, it's a contractor or a paid intern within your company. And sometimes you have to be very prescriptive when you talk to people that don't understand your culture and what you're looking for. So if you're getting results back that you don't really like, one of the best ways in working with an intern is giving them an example of what good looks like. So what I could do here under description, let's say I didn't really like the response that it was given. I could come in here and say an example of a good
okay, so you can do that right here in this tool. I know there's other places you can put these kinds of rules and instructions in. Do this, don't do this. But you could do that right here within the description as well. Okay.
Correct. So just within the input, I can also edit that in the description of the tool itself. And I can do that in the instructions to the agent itself. So there's multiple different places where you can really get prescriptive in what you're looking for. And I'll just show you, for those familiar with Power Automate and might be curious, I'll go ahead and leave this for now because we're not saving that. But whenever I created this flow to fill in this SharePoint list item, I'm not leaving it all to chance with Copilot. I actually built out a Microsoft workflow that, if it'll load, there we go, looks exactly like Power Automate, but it's under Copilot Studio. And then under Designer, it's just, hey, when an agent calls this flow with these pieces of information, fill in the SharePoint list item with those pieces of information. So I could really be prescriptive and dictate how this is going to function. So as much as I want to trust Copilot and as much as I want to make sure it's completely locked down, I have that available to me. So that kind of gets us started when it comes to our SharePoint agent for tasks. Oh, here we go. Let me get back here. But how about those autonomous agents I was talking about? How do we make an agent work behind the scenes without us ever even interacting with it? And the honest truth is, you do a lot of the same things you did for that task agent. You still follow in instructions. You can still add knowledge sources. You can still add in tools. The only difference is adding in a trigger element. So this trigger, again, if you're familiar with Power Automate, you're familiar with triggers, is the starting point for when this agent needs to activate. And these triggers can go far beyond just what Copilot sees. So as you can see, I can set it as a reoccurrence, meaning, hey, every Monday, run this prompt. Or every 3 weeks, I need you to compile this report based on these different documents in different SharePoints. I can also do it when an item is created or when a file is created. Whenever a new email arrives, I can say, look to see who the sender is. If it's one of these people, follow these rules or these steps. And I can actually look directly in all of the available Microsoft programs out there for triggers to how it includes in my environment. And there's even some premium triggers that are out there as well for specific outside of Microsoft programming. I see that we have a hand raised. What's up?
Yes, I had a question related to guardrails. Now that you have task agents and autonomous agents,
Yes.
what are the guardrails in place for things like financial transactions, like
Excellent question.
automating purchases and things like that?
So if there was ever something that you wanted to include as far as your guardrails yourself, you can always include those inside of the instructions. But the overarching web of Copilot still is interactive with these Copilot agents. So the same restrictions that are on standard Copilot, such as not being able to search for people's social security numbers or financial information, not being able to look up for ways to harm people, not giving out medical information, that is all still built into this agent. I'd actually tried to build an agent to help me for the weather, like give me a weather forecast. And in my instructions, it said, you are a meteorologist. You are helping me with this. And it came back with an error saying, I am not a qualified meteorologist. I can help you find information about the weather, but that's not my role. So these agents are still following those same guardrails that are employed for Copilot. You can just go in and actually add your own if you wanted to. Is that a satisfactory answer?
Yes, I was thinking about someone wanting to automate financial transactions of any kind.
So let's say that you're saying, can somebody create a Copilot agent that could actually purchase something on the web?
Yep.
At this point in time, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I will say that it would take some monumental hurdles to get there. Copilot is really not meant to interact with the web that much. It is meant to interact with your Microsoft environment particularly. So as far as purchasing and things along those lines, I believe that's already built into the Copilot guardrails, but to build out something that could actually interact in that way would take a large technical feat that I really would not have time to get into the nitty-gritty of in our short amount of time we have today. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probably restricted out of the box? Absolutely. Is it even possible? I would need to check with some of my more higher advanced engineers to make sure of those answers. But I can find that out and send that to you privately.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. So we are coming up to the last about 10 minutes of our meeting. I did want to show you just a few other features. So first of all, this is an email that is sent to me once a week based on that SharePoint list that I was showing you earlier. If I come back into my emails, you'll see that it's sent off every Monday at 6:40. It's compiled all the information from that SharePoint list for me. It's shown me all the new items, all the completed items, any high priority items and their description. So it's automating this kind of coalition of data for me so that I don't have to go searching for it, and I don't even have to instruct my agent to do that. But that's kind of the differences between those agents. Now, let's get back to one of those questions we heard about a little bit earlier, and that was, how do we pay for all of this? Well, first of all, agents are something that Microsoft is really passionate about. They've even included some agents that you might have seen already, such as researcher and analyst, are some deep thinking models that will really help you build out 30-page documents, or analysis that includes all sorts of charts and graphs to help you out. Some of them are more simple, like prompt coach or writing coach. These ideas that, just kind of helping you understand how to do a better at particular jobs. So these are kind of predefined for you to go ahead and try. But when it comes to how to pay for all of this, let's talk about that. First of all, if you have a paid Copilot license, if your organization is paying $30 a month for you to have the full version of Copilot, you get to have unlimited messages with agents. Back and forth as much as you want. It's not going to cost an extra single cent because you are paying for that extra license, which many of you who have the license might think that sounds really great. But many of you are probably also thinking, oh, I was helping to build an agent that anybody at the university can use. What can we do? Well, if you have someone who's just using the free version of Copilot, there are still avenues for them to engage. First of all is you can pay $200 a month for 25,000 messages. Now, I don't work for Microsoft, I just work with Microsoft. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of an inside scoop. When it says message, it doesn't mean just its reply back to you. Think of messages as another word for tokens. So a message could be as simple as, 1 or 2 tokens, or a message could be 10 to 15 tokens, depending on the different steps that it has to do. So for example, as it was adding things to that SharePoint list, that would have probably taken at least 10 tokens for it to go through all of that work to accomplish it, which would have taken 10 messages from this bucket. Now, the good news is you can always re-up. So if you start running out before the end of the month, you can add more to your system, and you are given some free at the beginning of each month. So that way there's kind of a little bit of a bucket to pull from. However, if you don't want to have to keep constrained on making sure your messages are uploaded and things like that, there is the route of a 1 cent per message option. Now, that's really nice because you never have to worry about agents again, but that means your price could vary every single month, meaning that let's say you find some equilibrium, people are using agents in a specific way. For 3 months, your bill for agents is pretty much the same. However, somebody builds a brand new agent, everyone's loving it, everyone's using it. Now, because of that added, your bill could maybe go up and spike more than you were expecting. So it's kind of the give and take of what you can utilize as far as the pricing that goes along with this. But in the good news, if you are that paid Copilot license user, you already have those unlimited messages and can start using agents today. Is there any questions about the billing before I get into some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat?
Yes, I had a question. The Microsoft 365 Copilot comes with the Copilot Agent Lite that you called.
Correct.
But does the price structure, because most of us at the university have access to Microsoft 365 Copilot through our enterprise license, does that come with the Copilot Studio, or the $30 is on top of what it cost us to get a Microsoft 365 license?
If you have the full license and your IT department has allowed you to have access to it, you have access to Copilot Studio. It is just a website that you can go to, and I'll go ahead and throw that website into the chat. I can't personally guarantee that. I don't have access to your system where I could have tested that ahead of time, but it is possible that you can go ahead and start playing with agents today. All right, any other questions before I start with the ones in the chat?
John, quick question. Can you go back to that cost slide, please?
Absolutely.
So if I am a paid user, but I'm faculty, I want to create an agent and then share it with my students who do not have the paid version of license. How does that work? Do I automatically fall into the free Copilot, or?
No, so you would, sadly, they as students would still fill under the free Copilot user, and they would need to have this messaging pack purchased or this 1 cent per message enabled for them to be able to utilize it.
Okay, so maybe you don't know the answer for that, but I'm still going to ask. Do you know whether Microsoft has a plan to make this free for the students, especially if somebody within a university creates the agent but want to share it with their students?
I have not heard anything. I have not been in the sphere of Microsoft ED lately. So I can ask questions though and see if there's been any talks with that with my colleagues. And if something comes up, I'll let you know.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
I have just a follow-up question to that, which is the one that was in the chat. So I'll just sort of put it in here, which is with for example, with ChatGPT, I can create a custom GPT and I can make that public or I can share it. But if I want to give it knowledge, now that knowledge becomes part of OpenAI's records and databases, which is not cool with some of the stuff that I would want to build as an agent, as Madhavi is talking about, for my students. But I could deploy it to my students and there wouldn't be a charge unless they had to upload data and some other stuff. But anyway, so I don't want to do that. Is there something equivalent to creating a custom GPT in Copilot that is not a Copilot agent and goes around this this model where we're not using Copilot Studio, but we're just saying, here's my prompt and use this, and when a student says this, say this? Or is the agent the only way that Copilot lets you build that equivalent kind of functionality?
All right, Richard, we're going to go a little off script here. Okay. You asked a good question. You deserve a good answer. So, one of the things, and I won't have time to get into it very deeply today, but this is not an agent that I'm showing you, but it is called Copilot Notebooks. And I believe they should be enabled for you right now.
Okay.
Copilot Notebooks appear if you go to your Office homepage. And within a notebook, you basically are building a pseudo agent. I would not call it a full agent. It's not going to have all the functions and capabilities that we are used to here. But let me, hang on. Where's my Project X? I should do it. Oh, I'm sorry. This is showing the newer version of it. I was a little confused at first at what I was seeing. So basically, well, a pseudo agent that we have built that we have loaded in specific pieces of documentation into. We can create new pages, and then people can ask questions of this agent. So, oh, I haven't created it yet. That's part of the problem. Hang on. Sorry, I wasn't 100% prepared for this. Let me try this. There we go. I'll create a brand new notebook here. So I'll say that this is my test for demo agent. I see all of these pieces of documentation. I can load those in.
And they could come from SharePoint as well if we wanted, right? Okay.
Correct. Yes. And then what is going to happen? It's going to take that information. It's going to first build a summary of this, but now I can start asking questions of this particular notebook over here, and it's only going to be pulling from this piece of information. This is outside of the agent realm, but you are able to then get into the settings and actually modify this so that it has kind of those instructions that we were speaking to before. This screen will probably look a little bit different than the one that you utilize, simply because I have a more advanced version, and I wouldn't have shown this if it was planned. But yes, that might be a starter point for getting down this road.
Thank you. I'll definitely look into that. Appreciate it. And I have another meeting, so I'm leaving now, not because I'm bored, but thank you for the information. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Richard. Good to see you again. All right. How do we play a good agent to multiple users in the organization? All right. So if you were to build an agent that you wanted to share with more colleagues and not just people without a license, within the admin portal, you can actually dictate if an agent is shared with particular individuals, it can be shared with particular groups, or it could be shared with the entire organization. So you could actually cherry pick, working with your IT department, how this agent could be rolled out and the people that would have access to it. Joe asks, billing applies to any agent, including the pre-built Microsoft agents? Correct. Billing does apply to those agents as well. If you want access to agents, you're going to have to either have that plan in place, or you're going to have the 1 cent per message turn on, or have that full license. Is there any other questions that I could be answering today before we finish up? Well, all right.
John, I do have security questions, but we might have to bring you back again to answer some of these other questions.
It would be my pleasure. Yes.
Yes. So my question is again, like I think I heard you saying that if you have access to these documents, whatever the agent or Copilot is going to go through, it can be anything and everything that you have access to.
Correct.
Right, within the Microsoft environment and others, whatever. So any advice to the people over here, how to make sure that your information is not out there, because somebody who shouldn't have access to may run a query to ask a question that they should not be asking.
That's fair, Madhavi. So let me say Microsoft already has your back when it comes to that. I'm going to go ahead and just stop sharing my screen for a second. So what Microsoft does is still preserves the permissions that is on documentation for their agent. So let's say I build an agent. I say, hey, go to this SharePoint to feed information, to be able to answer questions. And let's say somebody else then jumps into my agent and asks a question. Because they're still logged in to use the Copilot experience, and their profile is recognized, the agent is not going to give them access to documentation that they don't natively have access to. There's no secret backdoor to accidentally see other people's information. It's still very secure. And if you were going to share information in an agent like this, it's good to be mindful of where that information is being stored. If you're going to be using it with a lot of different people, you're going to want that in a SharePoint that's a little bit more public facing, and to have the folder that contains this information or the individual permissions on this documentation to be linked to your needs, whether that is everybody in the organization should see this data, like you could do with an HR agent, or only people that are working on this project should have access to this data because the agent itself is working around the project. So the same way that you manage permissions in your SharePoint today, agent is going to respect those as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
So
Well,
I want to have anything else?
I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I'll go ahead and call it a day. Thank you so much for having me. And if there's any other questions, comments, or concerns, please let Madhavi know, and I will be happy to work through her.
Hey, John, thanks so much for spending time with us. And I know, Madhavi, you were going to say something, but hopefully the viewers today had a chance to see this kind of next step in generative AI, this idea of agents, how they're built, how they can be useful to the work that we do on a daily basis. And of course, it's our creativity that will contemplate how in our own environments, it's best to create them and use them effectively. So pretty exciting, actually more than pretty exciting, exceptionally exciting. Madhavi, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, again, like I said, John, you might have to come back again and do some of these things because there's a lot of interest in this. I just posted a link. UND is hosting the AI and Human Innovation Showcase on March 20th. We are looking for representation proposals. If anybody is interested, please go ahead and submit and take part in these showcases as well. So other than that, next time in March, we will have Afia she used to work at EAB, but now she's with Huron. She'll come back again and talk to us about what they are finding on the AI realm for education as well. Since it's been a year, a lot of things change over a year, so we thought it would be good to have her back again with us. So thank you.
Thank you.